Hello and hi. Welcome to the season finale of the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Kimmel Center, Inc. This is a space where we hope you'll find a home in this art we all love. I'm your host, Khadija Mbowe, and I describe myself as a sociocultural content creator, classically trained soprano, and loving provocateur. And I'm here to facilitate some heartfelt, engaging, disruptive conversations with artists, activists, and everyone in between. That's you. The enchanting sounds you heard in the intro were from a track called Beauty, which was composed by our guest today, the artist known as Respectful Child, or, if you prefer...
Yeah, you can call me Jelly.
So, Jelly, aka Respectful Child, can you tell me and the audience how exactly you got that name first? Are you a respectful child? Is this an ironic little playing with words?
Yeah. So Respectful Child is my Chinese name that was given to me from my grandma on my maternal side. And yeah, so my parents are both from Malaysia. And they came to Saskatchewan, Treaty 6 territory, pretty randomly. And then they ended up staying here and having me and my brother. And most of our family has never been this far, like up here to like travel to see us. But my grandma came twice, once when my brother was born and once when I was born. And she gave us both our names. And it was like this weird thing where it was like, I have a second name, but like it never felt like my name. It was like no one ever calls me by my Chinese name. It's like pretty Anglophone out here. It's a little bit more diverse now, but it was like fairly white growing up. So yeah, it was like this thing where when I finally wanted to branch out and do something on my own, like make a solo project, I had this name already in my back pocket. So yeah, it was like a nice opportunity to finally make my name feel like me, like a part of me. And yeah, it also always felt a little bit funny for two reasons. Like one, I have a suspicion that my grandma calling me Respectful Child was more like in the obedience side, being like, you will be a good, obedient child. And then my mom would always be like, you are not a respectful child every time she got mad at me, you know, when I was like, you know, being rebellious or whatever. But it also, like, to me, it's still, even to this day, like, hearing it in English sounds a little bit funny. It, like, seems so obviously like a translation. But that's kind of just, like, how I feel culturally in a way, too. It's like I feel like a translation between cultures, and I'm like in this sort of in-between space. So I don't know. And yeah, it's been great because almost nobody else is called Respectful Child. Except TikTok, there's like some Roblox kid that took the name from me. But it's been nice because it feels like me now. Like when people call me that, I'm like, yeah, that is my name.
Okay. I like that. I like the origins of course, your grandmother being like, all right, you're new to this world. You are going to be a respectful, young, obedient, nice, disciplined, focused child. And I like the flipping around of that. Or I wouldn't even, maybe not even call it flipping around, because what does being a respectful child mean? What did that mean in the context of growing up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can guess that they meant obedience more so in terms of like, you know, you'll listen to your parents and you'll like, you know, you won't cause trouble, you won't like stir the pot or whatever. And like, for the most part, I didn't, but like, yeah, we can interpret respectful to mean like a lot of different things. It's like respectful to who, or like respectful in what context, and relative to others. So yeah, it's kind of versatile in that way too.
Yeah. So you grew up playing, was it violin and piano, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did you start taking lessons? Was music just like always like your parents were like, this is an important part, something that you should learn, or was it something that you came to yourself?
Yeah, so I started both violin and piano when I was 4, about to turn 5, so pretty little. And the piano part, the story is that my dad came home and was like, I got a sale, and he bought a piano. and then it was like, okay, now me and my brother have to learn piano. And luckily our next door neighbor teaches piano. So we just like, you know, started to learning from her. And with like violin, we had like these family friends, and they had 3 daughters, and their oldest daughter had been taking violin, and she was ready to move on to like a larger size. And they had this little 16th violin that just sounded absolutely terrible. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I kind of remember them just like phoning and be like, does your kid want to take violin? And I was like, okay, because I didn't know what that meant. And then I never stopped. It just like, it was kind of a thing that I did for a really long time. I kind of around like pre-teenage era was when I was like closest to quitting, because it felt like such a chore. And because, you know, classical music can be so rigid in what they try to expect of you and what they want you to do, and it wasn't fun. I wasn't actually like enjoying music, but luckily I was able to like have experiences later in like high school that made me enjoy music as an art and a pastime rather than like something that I just had to do to please my parents or something, or my teacher. And then I was really lucky to like have lots of musical opportunities after that. Like, I think because I started so young and I had such a familiarity with notation, just like how musical things work. I like played in school band. I played the French horn because I'm a nerd, because I wanted to be unique. I took like voice lessons mostly because I saw people do musical theater, and I was like, that looks like fun. I'll do all the other random vocal stuff just so I can do Annie or whatever. And yeah, sing in choir, and have been able to pick up other stuff like guitar and whatever over the years.
You said your dad came home and said he made a sale. Was he working in piano Wait.
Not made a sale. He found a sale, which is even better. Like he found a piano on sale, and they still have that piano to this day. It's like this upright Wurlitzer, and it's like really tall and black and shiny, and it sounds pretty good for an upright, like, you know, it's like, I don't know, just like big and boomy kind of thing. So yeah, we've just had this piano like pretty much my whole life.
And do your parents play any instruments as well? Like, what did they do?
Yeah, well, from what I know, my mom was able to take like organ lessons for a little bit. But it was kind of like she had to maybe go to like the next town or over or something to like take those lessons. So it was a lot more difficult. And I don't think my dad took formal lessons growing up, but apparently his dad could literally just play anything he touched. Yeah, kind of cool stuff like that. And now my dad, like, yeah, he knows a little bit of piano, a little bit of guitar. He has like a whole collection of flutes, and like there's this cute thing where they have this like little white dog, which almost every Asian parent has a little white dog. His name is Oscar. And almost every day, like clockwork, Oscar will go sit by the flutes and like demand that my dad play a flute, and then like howl along while my dad plays. And then when he's had enough, he'll just leave, and my dad will. So the dog runs the house, and my dad performs for him when he wants it.
Oh my God, stop.
My brother played piano and trumpet all throughout school. But I think, like a lot of my classmates, lots of people took piano lessons or whatever, music lessons, but they did it until their parents said, okay, you can finally quit now. And like they moved on to like their next activity. Whereas it was just like, it was a really big part of my upbringing and my life. And it still is, obviously.
No, that makes sense. And I did classical music in school as well. But the thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you can even speak to this, but it's funny when I look at classical music in Canada, at least, the minority students are like white or black or other, you know, like maybe not all of them, but at U of T, it definitely was. There were a lot more Asian students that were instrumentalists and all of that. So I wonder, was that like I don't know how to ask this. Like, was that something that was kind of always in the background for you? This idea of I have Asian parents that want me to play an instrument or be musically inclined, and this is something that I'm not sure if I'm asking this ignorantly. So please, you can be like, girl, what are you saying?
So I think there's definitely, obviously, like I can't do the sociology or whatever about like, you know, like what does it mean? But like, I think I've read things about how oftentimes Asian families put their kids into to music lessons, and it's a way of almost like finding a middle class, like aspirational middle class, like status or something like that, to be able to participate in that. It gives them useful skills. It teaches them discipline, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, I guess like in terms of race, like growing up, the thing that I was most aware of was like, we have things like, it's called Music Festival, but it's like definitely not a festival. It's a competition.
Yes.
So it's like once a year, and they print out like a program, and it has everyone's name and what song they're playing. And we would go through, and our teacher would like highlight like, oh, look out for these kids. They're good. Like you gotta like step up your game, kind of like a sport or something. And I forget how explicitly it might have been said, but there was kind of this understanding that the Asian kids are good. Like the Chinese kids, they're going to be really good, but they don't have feeling. It's like they're technically good, but they won't have the same kind of emotional expression. And yeah, I just remember being really aware of that and being like, okay, I have to show that I'm different. I have to show that I do like express emotions. And as a kid, what that meant was I like moved my arms a little bit when I played piano. Like it was really, it's like, what level of emotions do I have as a 10-year-old kid when I'm playing, I don't know, like a sonatina? Like really, we're all at the same level. And then now growing up and like, you know, having a bit more of an understanding of like the way race and history and all that stuff has played out like in the world, there still is like this characterization of Asia being like robotic or like emotionless, you know, like mechanized, all those different sort of things. Yeah, like very like rigid, very strict and all that sort of stuff. And sure, like some of that can be true, but like it was like this very unfair kind of like boxing or like border that was placed on kids. And the only way that I knew to understand or like kind of combat that was to try and be like, not that. Be like, no, I'm not the Chinese kid that you think I am. I have feelings. yeah. But yeah, it was just, it's so strange to think that, yeah, to kind of like place that, I don't know, analysis on a young kid to be like, well, technically they're very good at their scales, but they don't put any real feeling into their music.
That was a clip of Forest from the original soundtrack from Anne Koizumi's 2021 animated short documentary called In the Shadow of the Pines. 100% of the sales from the album have been donated to support the Native Women's Shelter in Montreal, the only women's shelter in the city that provides services exclusively for Indigenous women and their children. Since taking on the moniker Respectful Child, Jelly has refused to settle into a niche. In addition to numerous short film soundtracks, they've released a full-length album, scored a live theater play, and even created a visual art installation. Just before the pandemic, Jelly was approached by a curator from Raimi Modern to contribute to their Emerging Artists series. The result was an interactive project called falling leaves return to their roots.
They leave it totally open to you. I was just able to do whatever I wanted in a sense. And I felt like I didn't immediately think I want to do a sound installation. I was like, okay, well, I can do anything here. Let's just like sit and think. And I was thinking about how this would be like the biggest audience that I've ever interacted with. It's like the public get to come and visit whatever I put into this space. So I kind of I think I wanted to be not too ambiguous, if that makes sense. And the project itself slowly evolved over like a series of conversations I was having with my friends and family. And it started off with like, at one point I was just asking my parents about the other big festivals back home other than Chinese New Year, because I know that's like kind of like the really big one. But I was like, what else is there? There's just like so much that I haven't experienced like growing up here in Saskatoon. And my dad was telling me about the Hungry Ghost Festival, and that's one of the ones where they like build big paper effigies and they put out food and offerings. And it's like this belief that at this time, like everyone that's passed on, their spirits are all roaming the streets. And it's like, it's a time to like put out things to like take care of them or to communicate with them. And then I'd also been learning about the specific area that the Remy Modern is located on. It used to be Chinatown, like way back in the 1930s. And that Chinatown was eventually like demolished and displaced and then like moved it to another area. And it's like, oh, that's literally what we're also dealing with right now in North America, you know, dealing with gentrification, dealing with, you know, racial attacks or that sort of thing. And so I wanted to be able to, you know, find a way to work with these two things together and to think about like ancestors. I was realizing that I felt so much more invested in understanding this history, just knowing that Chinese settlers used to live and work there. And I was like, oh, I don't need to like even know who they are personally, and I don't have any sort of like blood connection to them, but they feel like my ancestors because they were here before me, laying groundwork in terms of like what they had to go through and what they had to figure out and survive to like make it in this area. So yeah, I ended up making it like a physical sculpture. We built a gate and gave everyone that visited to write a message to the ancestors. It was like really open-ended. It's like write to whichever ancestors you want and write whatever you want. It doesn't have to just be like nice things. It can be questions. It can be things you're upset about, things that you're scared about, things that you want them to know about you. And I stuck the messages over the course of a couple months onto the gate, and then we finally had like a burning ceremony as a way to like finally send it off from our world over to like the spiritual world. So yeah, it was a really special experience, and I was really happy with how engaged people took to it. Like I didn't count, but it probably received over a couple hundred like, you know, messages that people wrote, and there were lots of kids that like drew pictures. One of them drew a meal, and I was like, oh, they want to like feed breakfast to grandpa or something, you know. And some people really sat down and like wrote pages, you know. And I think so many people are wanting to have some sort of spiritual connection, but it's so confusing or kind of like blurry because of like the role that religion has taken over that in some ways, and how I grew up like in a Christian household initially, and it's hard to sometimes detangle what I was taught within a religious setting and like what I can understand within my own, what kind of spiritual relationship I want to have. So I think it was nice to just kind of open up that door, and hopefully people have continued on. But like for me, it has. And it's been like, I'm really, really grateful that I had that experience, and also the ability to just try something totally new that I've never done before and that I may or may not have been good at. Like it didn't matter whether I was like good at constructing it, you know. It was about like just like being open to figuring it out. And a cool thing was that my dad's father he used to build these like effigies, these paper constructions for like people's funerals or that sort of thing. And so it was kind of a neat way to be like, I don't get to learn directly from him, but I can feel this connection of trying to learn anyways, like just doing my best. And it's like now carried on into my own everyday life of like figuring out how to what an ancestral altar looks like, and how to like set one up in my own home, and to be able to maintain that connection with my ancestors, and to think, just like reframe that whole relationship of not thinking of them as people in the past and that are gone, but as like as someone that I can continue to like interact with on the daily, and that I can like, yeah, talk to or ask questions from, or any of that sort of thing.
And also it has the effect of holding you responsible in the present for what happens in the future, because like you were saying, and like this work is, it's what did I want to communicate with them, those that are gone, those quote unquote gone, and what would I want? what am I going to look like to people in the future if they're going to be asking questions back or anything like that? Am I being a good ancestor?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure that like this like historical information that I was learning about wasn't just like, oh, that happened. That's too bad that happened in the past, you know? And for us to like really understand how we are part of history, and also that we are ancestors ourselves, and that there isn't like just a passive way to interact. Like we are involved, whether we like it or not.
That was Glitter from Respectful Child's debut album, Searching, which was released in 2017. Oh, dang, you might be thinking, that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And you would be correct. Yes, it is time for a new album. The project, due out later this year, will offer an updated view of who Jelly is today.
I only made this about my gender because there was a really explicit connection between the two of them. I wasn't just going to make some music and then be like, this is what gender feels like today. Or not that I'm trying to like, I don't know, slag off other people who do, you know, whatever. But it doesn't make sense for me unless it really is obvious why it had to be music. So like basically the album that I have recorded and done and stuff, it's kind of drawing this parallel between my classical training and like the colonial gender binary, and being like, these are two things that I didn't have a say in, and that have been with me since I was like, for as long as I've had memories. For as long as I can remember, I've been told I'm a girl, that I need to act like a girl, that I look like a girl, all that stuff. And also, I've been told to like hold my violin this way, play my scales this way, that this is what sounds good, this is what sounds bad. And I didn't have any choice in that. And I wanted to kind of do an inventory and to recognize the fact that even though I'd love to throw it all out the window, I can't. It's like, whether I like it or not, these things have shaped how I grew up and how I play music and how I think about myself and about music. So I can at least like think about it all and then decide, what do I actually want to keep and what do I actually want to like intentionally try to like get rid of, or that sort of thing. I was also thinking about how, like, I'm pretty sure that, like, my own queer journey, a lot of it happened alongside Respectful Child as a project. Like, I'm pretty sure my first show that I played was around 2015, 2016. And that's, like, around the time that I was starting to explore other gender options, that I was meeting friends online and being like, oh my God, like I don't have to be like a cis woman for the rest of my life. Like that's an option.
It's wild when you find out you can do what you want. It's like, what? Wait.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, so I guess I'll try out different pronouns and like I'll assert them in like my artist bio or like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then slowly being like, oh, I'm like gonna play on a lineup that's like other queer artists and like, initially feeling like this straight ally imposter and then now feeling very much like there's community within that. And yeah, so it's like there's a mirror between those two, and I didn't even realize it, like another thing I was thinking about with like even just like the music aspect of it, since the beginning of like experimenting with sounds for Respectful Child, I even without really explicitly or intentionally meaning to, I was trying to find other ways to use my violin than how I was taught to. And I almost was like trying to be like, this doesn't sound like a violin, or like I kind of wanted to make electronic music, but I didn't know how to yet. And it was too confusing to learn it all at once. So I just like, I went with what I had. I had like this violin that's like, feels like an extension of my body. And I had some pedals. And then now reflecting on that, being like, oh, I was trying to like work out, like trying to like get out of those restrictions in the same way that I'm sort of also trying to get out of like what society has tried to restrict on me in terms of like what kind of person they think I should be or how I should be treated or how I should act. It was like, oh, okay, I guess like my brain, it knew what it was doing all along, whether I realized it or not.
There's one last question I want to ask. Do you have any last piece of advice for the audience out there? Maybe the young music makers.
I guess not being afraid to like throw yourself in there. Yeah, like within like the last couple of years, I've been reminding myself as much as I can to just really place higher priority on enjoying things, and that enjoying things doesn't have to rest on being good at them. That it's like you don't have to be improving to enjoy something. You can just enjoy it for enjoyment's sake. And I think about that a lot because I'm involved with girls rock camp here in the city, and I just like always want to make sure that these young campers that come, that they don't think that now that they've been to camp, they have to become a successful rock star. Or like even the way that we talk about, like look at this artist and look at this person, that we're not talking about how successful they are. We just talk about like why their music meant something to me or why we enjoy it. And like, you'll always hear things of people being like, oh, I can't sing, I'm not good. And it's like, everyone can sing. And singing...
That is my favorite thing to say to people. I'm like, everyone can sing.
Everyone can sing. And like the point of singing isn't to be good. If you want to be a good singer, then yeah, you can make a career out of it. But like, if you just want to sing, then sing.
Yeah.
If you want to try a new sport, if you want to try a new skill, it's like, it's okay if you're not good at it. If you just like want to do it and you're having fun, then that's like all that matters. And like, I feel like that's a big border that we have in our brains, right? That we have to be good, and ultimately it's like if you're good at it, then you can make money off of it or something, that you can get clout. But it's like, okay, who cares? Just enjoy what you want to enjoy.
I, for one, very much enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you did too. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode and this entire season. We've had some laughs, some learning, lots of music, and it's been such a pleasure to hear from all of our fantastic guests. I'm Khadija Mbowe, and this has been the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Kimmel Center, Inc.